Hello and welcome to the Service-Based Business Society podcast. I am your host, Tiffany-Ann. On our weekly episodes, we will dig into everything you need to know about scaling your service-based business without losing sleep. With my experience in creating over 7 figures per month and a passion for marketing, finance, and automation, this show will provide tangible tips and techniques for scaling your business. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. Today we have a very special guest in the studio. She is a very good friend of mine who I met online as the Selfie coach. We have Liberty Edwards here today. And you might ask, what exactly is a selfie coach? And so I'll be honest, I didn't know what a selfie coach was either. And so just as I was finishing up my time in corporate, I was in a Facebook community and suddenly someone had asked questions about, making better selfies for online and taking more photos and doing these kinds of things. And I saw Liberty recommended over and over and over again. So I, of course, jumped into her Facebook community and started following along and really realized that it was way more than just selfies. It was about being able to show up authentically as yourself, feeling comfortable. And so we're going to go into a little bit about my transformation story and how selfies really did change so much for me. But I am super excited and honored to have Liberty here. And so welcome to the show, Liberty. Hey, Liberty, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So we have talked for so long about you joining on the podcast. So the fact that you're actually here is exciting.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
So talking and jumping in a little bit too, I want to share a bit of our story. It's unique that we are legitimate, business friends and met through doing business online. And so I've never done that before. And, you see the people online who connect and it's kind of almost like dating, really. So, let's share a little bit about that story because I think it's very unique. Well, to me, it is.
Yeah. Well, and it is a lot like dating. There's a conversation that's like kind of had in the comment section first. And there's a, hey, well, maybe I might want to take this program with you or work with you. That's kind of like your first date. And then you can just kind of go deeper. And that's sort of, I think, what we did, right? You were in the group and I had a program, and I remember talking to you about whether or not this program would suit what you were looking for. And then moving from a program to one-on-one coaching and really getting to know you and I remember thinking, this woman has everything together. Why is she hiring me? But when we got to work one-on-one, there was so much difference between us where I was like, oh, I can fill in that gap for her. And you honestly filled in gaps for me before I was even talking to you about business because I just saw how you handled things and it was a different take on how I handled things. So it was neat to try to think about what would Tiffany-Ann say you're so brave. I feel like you're so much braver than me. And so the way you approach things head on, where I sometimes detract from confrontation, it just really helped me. And I love where our friendship is.
Such an interesting perspective because I would reflect and say, I think you are so much braver than I am because I, especially to start with, really struggled to show up on social media. I was so shy to do any kind of like live video. The thought of, if I go back 2 years and think, I'm going to have a podcast and I'm going to have a YouTube channel and I'm going to be on TikTok and do all of these things, I would have laughed you out of the room and said that there was no way. So while I am braver now, I still think of some of the things that you do and whatnot, and I still wouldn't do that. But I think that that summarizes our friendship and differences so well is that we both really respect each other for our differences. And it's a unique piece where we do fill those gaps for each other. And I love that.
I agree. I think I would venture to say that this is the one friendship that I have where we are complete different in some of our thinking, but we've never made each other feel bad about that or disrespected over that. It's more like, that's an interesting take. Let me think about that. And I think if you remember early on in our friendship, I would jump to conclusions about what you must be thinking about me based on friendships I had tried to have in the past. And you would quickly be like, wait, that's not where my brain is going. Hold on. And I really love that about our friendship.
Yes, I know I personally have learned so much from being able to speak openly with someone that is so different than me and be able to say like, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking and I don't necessarily know how to say it the right way. And so even just communicating and being willing to have that honest dialogue with someone, sending over a video before I post it online, being like, hey, this doesn't seem right. It's really nice. Honesty is so nice. And I think these days it's hard to come by.
I agree.
So let's talk a little more about, we started with your program. I started working with you. And I know I've changed so much in that length of time. But if I really look at all of the different impacts and whatnot, and that it is so much more than selfies, how do you kind of summarize what you do? What is your elevator pitch if you had one?
Oh, I used to have a perfected elevator pitch that was, I'm a selfie coach. I teach you how to take selfies that will wow your clients and stop them in their scroll so you can give them your pitch. Since I started my business, it's really grown, and it's more that I help you be confident enough to show up authentically online and build real trust with your audience so that when you sell whatever you're selling, they know that you're not just looking for their dollar, that you're looking for their best interest.
Yes. Right now, especially if you go online, depending on, and it seems like, you kind of get into the wrong side of somewhere, the wrong side of a social media group, and suddenly, it's super spammy or people are reaching out. It's really encouraged in certain business, lines of business and whatnot. And I think it's, to really come out as somebody who is authentic and isn't being super spammy is more and more challenging than it once was.
I agree and I disagree. I agree that it is pretty much coached to do things a certain way. And that is how a lot of businesses believe they can scale and move easily because they're just very structured. But what I noticed during the pandemic especially was more and more people were leaving that perfect Pinterest spiel behind and searching for authentic people because they were trapped in their homes. They were desperate for human connection, and you just don't get that human connection from a cookie cutter way of doing things. So while I do think that many people are still trying to push that cookie cutter way, and let's be honest, we know what we're talking about here. We're talking about a lot of social selling MLM platforms, but even so, I think some coaches are starting to do this where they're trying to teach the masses the way that they succeeded. And the only way to teach it is to make it duplicatable, which is to simplify it down to this. But when actuality, if you just make a few tweaks to the way you're presenting your information, it can be learned and then adapted to authenticity and rebranded and put out there so that everybody is teaching maybe even the same information, but it's coming across in such a different way because they have their authentic voice on it that you're able to teach it and grab it and grasp it and run with it. Does that make, I think that's where my brain was going with that.
Yes. Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I think, it comes back to, I remember a conversation you and I had very, very early on about authenticity and you saying, and encouraging me to be authentic. And the interesting piece, and I think I've only really realized it in the last few months, to be honest. At that time, I really did feel like I was being authentic. I felt it. I felt like I was being authentic, 100%. And so when you would say something like, be who you are with your friends or be who you are at home or be authentic. And I was like, I am. This is like, what are you talking about? I was trying so hard. And it turns out you can't try hard to be authentic. That's not a thing. And so, but only now am I really realizing that I was almost conditioned to, that was authentically me. And it actually took more time to strip out what wasn't me to get back to what really was me. And that was, whether that it was circumstance or life or, I was a certain way. And so finding the authentic me was so much more than, not being shy. It was truly actually figuring out first, who is that? Who is that authentic version of me?
Yeah, I think we become a product of our habits and our circumstances, and that's 100%. I do remember having those conversations, and I specifically remember saying, well, let your audience know that your dishes are in the sink today because you're focusing on this, be authentic. And you said something to the effect of, I would never share my dishes in my sink because that's not who I am. but it was kind of who you were. It just wasn't who you thought you could be. And maybe you were struggling with the fact that there were dishes in your sink because you were prioritizing something else. You were very much still you, very much still you. But it was almost as if you weren't allowing the fun part of you to surface at all, because you were always just so business professional. And you are very business professional, but you're also very funny and you're witty and you're sarcastic. And there's so much more to you that I think your audience needed to see. So maybe the dishes in the sink wasn't part of the authenticity, but it was me trying to get at the level of, hey, let this little part of you come out.
Yeah, I think that little part of me really had been pushed down so much because we work so hard, as a woman in male-dominated industry previously. I worked so hard to really be one of the boys, truly, and felt like, it's like they wore suits. I wore the equivalent, we sat around a boardroom table. We all, it was so just monotonous, really, like if I think back. And so you really work so hard to be one way. And then it's taken a long time to strip that back to truly actually be authentically myself. But even for me, that's not necessarily even just sharing. It's the version that I share with myself, which has been a very transformative journey.
Yeah. I think that women work so hard to get a seat at the man table that once they get there, they're willing to let go of themselves to fit in. And I think now, and I just got goosebumps about that, because I think now that there's this more of a push for women to make their own table and to not sacrifice the parts of them, any part. And to be honest, I think you were in that area for so long that it didn't even feel like you were sacrificing any part of yourself anymore. This was just who your grown-up self was.
100%. Yeah, it's interesting. And so, one would argue that I actually am so much more serious about my business and other people's businesses now. One of my, the things that are their best qualities are also your downsides, they always say. And so, I am so passionate about other people's businesses, my clients and whatnot as well. And so I take their businesses as seriously as my own. And so there's so much of that, but it's still, like you said, a little more lighthearted, and there's this kind of authentic piece. And so it's an interesting journey that all started with, I remember the post where you were referred to and people were asking about selfies, and it was, person after person was like, you need to check out Liberty. Liberty has a Facebook community, the selfie coach community. You have to get in there. You have to check this out. And so, I didn't even comment. I was one of those lurkers, if you will. And I was like, oh, let's go check it out. I don't know what this is about. And, the start of such a transformation that I wasn't even looking for. I didn't know I needed it.
Yeah. I don't think I was even marketing to women like you at the time, because and my views have changed so much because I have worked with you and I've worked with other clients who are professional like you. I looked at you and was like, well, she's already confident. She's already believes in herself. She's already got this business. She's already, her life is already on this path. And I do remember I had a coach at the time who was like telling me over and over that she was my ideal client, that she was a coach who still needed confidence help. And I couldn't put those two together in my brain because I was marketing and calling in women who were like me, who were going on this struggle of a confidence journey. And that by the end of the confidence journey, we realized we could own businesses because we were finally confident enough. So that was the end of the journey, which is where you were already starting. So I remember thinking to myself, what can I help this woman with? She seems to be confident and put together. And then within us working together, I could see, oh, wait, I can help there. Oh, hold on. We need to tweak this. This isn't exactly right. So it's even opened my eyes to the fact that regardless of the outside appearance or the journey that we're on in life, every woman needs a little bit of cheering on in certain elements of their life and business.
Yes, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. It's interesting because it was actually in one of my undergraduate degree classes that we did. There was this speaking class. And so basically each class was basically run like a miniature event. And so each student would manage, and there were speakers, and it was all recorded. And it was actually this moment that I realized, because we had to watch it back and provide feedback and whatnot. So it was in watching this video that I really realized that the inside feeling doesn't always align with the outside view. And so while in those moments, I mean, I think it's like my second year of university, so we're going back more years than I want to think about now, but you know, I felt nervous. I felt like that like anxiety of, you know, and it was an important class to me. I wanted to get this great grade. And I felt nervous. But when I watched the video back, because the feedback from the professor was, oh, you're so confident. And, you know, like, and I thought, oh, I don't know about that. But when I watched the video back, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, okay. I was like, the inside emotion did not convey to the outside. And so sometimes, you know, as there's so much back and forth now these days on, you know, fake it till you make it, whether or not that is the way to go or not. But in that moment, had I not just kept, it's a practice. Confidence is almost a practiced thing. And by just getting started and doing it and realizing that not everyone, you know, you might think, oh, people are thinking this or people are saying that, but when you watch the video back, it's like, oh, wait a minute. What do I look like? I was fine. And so, you know, and so that is kind of realizing that sometimes even if you feel dying on the inside, keep going.
Yeah. And you said something that's super important that I don't think everyone understands. Confidence isn't something that you're always born with. It is a practiced skill. It is a practiced, learned, and repeated daily skill that anyone can grow. And I think that's really important because a lot of people will just say, well, I'm just not confident enough. And they believe that that is their truth and that it cannot be changed. But it can.
You know, it's something that this morning, I was doing my brand photos. So I do photos with the same photographer. It's a monthly expense for my business. And we get together 4 times a year to refresh the content. You know, there's so much social media content and YouTube thumbnails that, you know, we need all sorts of images. And so I started working with this specific photographer. And, you know, I remember the first time being super nervous. Really nervous, to be honest. The very first one, if I think back, it was like, what am I going to wear? And what is it, this and that? And now it's just become this regular, you know, once a quarter I get the photos. We share a coffee, have some laughs, take some photos. And it is this practice thing where I don't get nervous anymore.
I can attest to that because I was with you when you first booked it and you were like, I don't know what to wear. And I remember talking you through what you're going to wear. And then you would be like, oh, I think that may have been one that your mom attended as well, because you came back and said, oh, my mom even had some. And then this morning in our friend, you know, we talk regularly, daily. I'm getting ready for my photo shoot and something had happened and you were like on it. Oh, well, troubleshoot. Let's get dry shampoo and out the door. And you were so much more calm and almost happy and looking forward to it.
Yeah, we had no hot water. So it was a dry shampoo day because I turned you know, when you turn the water on and then you're like, it's still no. And you're like waiting. You're like, how long should I wait for the hot? So I went and woke my husband up. I was like, there's no hot water. He's like, well, how long did you let it run? I was like, no, I'm pretty sure there's no hot water. So, you know, hot water fixed. But in that moment, you know, and not an ideal situation. I ended up having to bring my littlest to the photo shoot, you know, get out and off he went. We just called him, you know, the photographer intern and carried on. And had that all happened, if I go back to like I would have just been an absolute mess. Like I'd have been like, okay, we can't do this today. This is not going to work.
Yeah. I think you would have canceled and said, we'll do it next month.
Yeah. So, you know, your business, you mentioned your business has grown and whatnot. So what progress in terms of, you know, you talked about different audiences and whatnot. What change have you seen in your business in the last few years?
So many changes, some good, some bad, just up and down. I went into this thinking I was just going to be, I went into this not even realizing it was going to be a business. I was a photographer. I had just been in a car accident, so I wasn't physically able to go out and do photo shoots anymore for anyone. So I decided to start playing with makeup and take selfies, and I was just posting them online. It was back in like 2017. So social media, influencing, everything was still new. Really, the only influencers that were around were the ones on YouTube. And I felt like it was way too saturated, which I now know is a complete crap. But I thought it was saturated. So I decided I wanted to go live on Facebook and I was going to teach people makeup and have fun. I started doing that and I was taking selfies in my basement, by the way, which is unfinished, completely dark. But I had created a little setup and I had my light. And I kept being, instead of people saying, how did you do this makeup look? What makeup products did you use? All of that. They kept saying, how are you taking such good selfies? Who's taking your photos for you? How did you do this lighting? How did you? And I just started out kind of teaching that. It was sort of random that I even decided, oh my gosh, I could do this as a business, because I had an email list come through and she said, let's make $5,000 in 5 days. And I thought, holy moly, that's a lot of money in 5 days. So I came up with an ebook. I designed it. I created it. I created a live class to kind of promote the book. I didn't quite make $5,000. I think I actually made like $200, but it sparked the idea that I could do this. And so it started as just selfies, basic selfie class, teaching everything I knew about good lighting, good angles, good editing, how to keep certain parts of your body, like minimize double chin, perfect the way that your body appears in a photo. And then from there, it sort of snowballed into becoming the face of your brand. And then it snowballed into building a brand and how to build your own personal brand. I guess all the way up to now I'm teaching women how to start a brand from scratch, build momentum, build their audience, and launch their first product. I have a lot of clients that are in MLMs. I have a lot of clients that are jumping into the coaching space. And a lot of clients are still my core, where my heart is, which is women who have lost themselves along the way and want to reconnect with themselves and feel better in their own skin. And it's funny because by teaching them how to take a good selfie, that all realigns. It's really awesome.
It is. It is. Had someone told me selfies were just, it would have been a no. Like I wouldn't have put it all together. And so, it changes the way you even look at the photos of yourself in terms of when someone else, as a mom, I can say I've been pregnant 3 times. I have no pictures, 0 pictures of me pregnant, because I was like, yeah, that's a no. No, not one picture. And I look at the people who have, beautiful, some of the maternity shoots nowadays are.
Do you have any of just your belly even?
0.
Oh, none. Wow.
Because I didn't want, and actually my aunt tried, I remember it was my grandfather's birthday and my aunt tried to take a photo, and there was like a family thing, because I was like, no, this is a no. And if I think back now, I'm like, this is silly. Like, this is crazy. But I was just so at that moment. There were so many times where it was like, oh, let's do a group photo. And suddenly I had to go to the bathroom, or, oh, look, forgot something in the car. And so there's an anxiety almost that comes from, it's like someone looks like they're going to take a picture and you're like, oh God, what do I do next? And so now, even like I have so many more pictures with my kids. My husband takes more pictures of, just me like cuddled up with the kid. And I don't necessarily think right away like, oh no, it's like softened and removed that anxiety over photos.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a shame you don't have any photos of you pregnant. But I also used to live in that I'm behind the camera, not in front of the camera mode. And I do think that a lot of times we let that anxiety sort of continue through the rest of our lives. And so our children one day are going to look back, and this is pretty morbid to think about, but they're going to look back after we're gone, and they're going to try to find photos of us because they desperately want to see us and we're not in them. And so not only did changing the way you feel about that, the anxiety, now your kids are going to have all these photos that they may not have had before of you in the photo. And they don't care what you look like because they just want to see their mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, I really look back at even my own photos, family photos and things. And my mom, same thing, she was the one who took the photos, not the one who was in the photos. And I don't have very many photos of her at all. The few that I do, sure, there were outfits or things, even in myself. My mom gave me a few very terrible haircuts as a young child. I look back at photos, but you look at it and it's like, okay, but that was the time. Even as we're seeing trends change these days, there's stuff coming out these days that I'm like, oh, that's not super flattering, but that's like the style. And so sometimes, you look back at, you're critical of photos, but now when I look back at those photos of my mom's shirt, I'm like, oh, but it's like, it's more of a, oh, I guess that was the time. You look at the, yellow shag carpet in some photos from, someone's house and you're like, oh, I would not have done that. I mean, I remember I had a family member who had brown carpet in their bathroom. That was the time, right? And so it's like, let's be less critical and worried. It just, I just enjoy the photos. And so all of that has really just changed so much, and just realizing things change, times change, just take the damn photo.
Right. Yeah. Our old house, fun fact, also had brown carpet in the bathroom. Why? All I could think about was how much moisture was collecting in the carpet and how, but it was the time, I guess. Easier than putting a floor mat down.
But you can never wash. Anyway,
Yeah, I know. But if we can get over the brown carpet, we can get over our weird haircut or the matching outfits that my grandparents put me and my 3 years younger sister in. We looked like twins, but we were 3 years apart.
Yes. Well, I mean, but there is, and I feel like times, and maybe I'm just more aware of it as I've gotten older, but trends change, and it feels like faster, like house trends change faster, I look at like my grandparents and their house is the same it's been since my whole life. You know what I mean? Both of them. And so, whereas, you follow on Instagram or Pinterest or whatever, and it's like, oh, this was in style. Now that's out. It's like all white was, in. I still like all white, but, and now it's like, oh, now we've gone like more natural colors and we've gotten way more black. And so whether that is in business or on social media platforms or whatever, I feel like keeping up is like this very quick evolution. It's like, oh, we're doing this. And then it's like, oh, that's out. Okay, now we're doing this. And so you almost feel like you're kind of chasing a bit to keep up with some of what's going on.
I agree. I think that's also one of the reasons why it is such an important thing to learn to take your own photos or take your own selfies, because the trends are going to change quickly. And if you know how to, like with you have this photographer booked 4 times a year. That's amazing, because probably the same style of photos that was in the spring is not going to be the style that's trending on business in the fall. And you're going to have that chameleon aspect. You'll be able to switch them out. If you don't have a photographer like you, being able to take some selfies to update your website, update your profile picture, update your LinkedIn, update your YouTube, all those things is important, because it is just constantly changing. And within 3 months, your pictures might be outdated.
It's very interesting to see the different progress, when you're working with photos and whatnot, it's different hairstyles, or I had very long hair for a long time and cut all of my hair off. So for me to all of a sudden randomly use a photo that has like super long hair would be very out of place, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so there is all sorts of change and progress, and being able to take those photos. And I think that one of the pieces is we all feel like we have to post so much, whether that is, and I am trying to learn to love the short form video content, but the photo, whether it's videos or photos or whatnot, it's, waking up and being like, what am I going to post? And if you don't feel comfortable, even now you've really limited, first it's like coming up with the idea, but now if you don't feel comfortable to execute the idea, it's also like now you've really limited yourself even more.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the short-term video, short form, but I still go in bouts where I'm like feeling great and I find the videos and I can post them. For instance, last night, I felt great and I was able to do 10 videos in a 30-minute period, and they're just sitting in my drafts ready to go. But up until that point, for like a week, I've just been drained and exhausted. So I wasn't recording anything. And I went to look back at some old videos to repost them. My hair's a different length. My hair's a different color. I had a weight loss journey, so I'm 30 pounds heavier. It just didn't feel as authentic to repost it because it's not actually representing me right now.
Yeah, for sure. There is so much of that. And I think that as you're going through and growing, what you're talking about, whether it's, the season or challenge or, win, no matter what that is, it has to be authentic to what's going on in your business now versus, 3 months is a long time in life. So someone who's just getting started and afraid to show up, or not necessarily, afraid to show up, but hesitant doesn't know where to start. What is those first few steps? What do you recommend?
If we're talking showing up on social media, I think the first thing you need to do is get in your head that there's someone out there who needs exactly what you're going to eventually offer or tell them. And it's not about you and your fear. It's about them and what they are searching for. I would always tell myself when I was too scared to post, there's a woman at home who is sinking in life and cannot find a lifeline. And I am that lifeline. Am I going to throw the rope? Am I going to jump in? Am I going to help her? Or am I going to sit here and say, no, 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 I'm too scared. She's just going to have to sink. So you have to get that mindset. And then I think when you look at it that way, you realize, oh, that's almost selfish of me to allow my fear to hold me back.
Yes, that is a very powerful statement. I think that we are, more willing to be uncomfortable and stretch to help others than more so than we are to just be uncomfortable for ourselves.
Right. And I think that in the very beginning, when you're launching a business or if you're starting, you want to grow your influence, whatever, all that you can think in your head is that this is for you because you're thinking about growing yourself. And at the end of the day, if I grow, then I can have this and I can have this. And you don't put it in the terms of, wait a minute, there's somebody who needs this. There's somebody who needs what I say. Even if, and I say this because I know a lot of people will say, but I don't know what I'm helping with. Even if you're showing them that you got out of bed and you got dressed and you got your kids out of the house, it shows them that they can get up, they can get out of bed, and they can get their kids out of the house. There's always going to be someone in some situation who needs help moving through that situation. Business, personal life, love, whatever. There's always someone who needs you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you had one tangible tip for someone to implement this week in their business, something that could give them that quick win, what would that be?
Throw away the perfectly designed graphic and put your face out there instead. You can say what you want to say. You can say the exact same thing that you were going to use with that graphic, but put your face there and you'll get way more interaction because you're putting a human person first. And people will always connect with a human person before they connect with a perfectly polished graphic or, heaven forbid, a copy paste graphic that you pirated off of somebody else's Instagram. Put yourself first. Put your face out there first. Even if it's poorly lit, even if it's you in your pajamas, even if it's you with your 4 kids, put yourself out there and you'll connect better than those graphics.
Absolutely. If people want to connect with you, Liberty, where would they find you?
I have a Facebook community called the Selfie Coach Community, but my favorite place is TikTok. I'm going to be really honest. That is where I spend most of my days. It's the playground. And now all I can think is the Fresh Prince song. I really connect with people there and I love to follow and be out there. Don't go to my Instagram. I forget to update that because I have long gone left the perfection of Instagram behind and I choose the hot mess express that TikTok allows me to be.
If I had to choose, we all know I'm anti-Instagram, but I think that TikTok has really allowed people to share their authentic versions. And I love that TikTok, the TikTok shows me all sorts of things about all sorts of different people. And you end up, learning new things and finding new people and sharing, different people sharing different stories. And it's, not necessarily for business or for use, but enjoyment. I enjoy TikTok.
Yeah. And it is very successful for businesses too. I do use it for mostly enjoyment right now, but it is getting sprinkled in with business.
Yes, no, for sure. Lots of successful business pieces on there. And plus we can repurpose that content to other places too. So thank you so much for being here.
If you have a Tiffany-Ann.
That's true. That's true. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It was fun.
Well, we are all out of time for today. If you guys have not joined the Service-Based Business Society Facebook community, make sure you head on over to Facebook and we can continue the conversation. Be sure to also follow the show by going to any podcast app and searching Service-Based Business Society, click subscribe, click the 5th star, and